Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio with contributions by Elvin Freites is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
amazing.
Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Advanced 360 Education. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back here on another episode. You know, when I do the intro, I say your because, obviously Elvin capitalizes your every time he talks about the EdUp Experience. And so I say yours, so I get the point across. You get it. Anyway, one thing you'll also get, hopefully, as I am recording this episode, literally as soon as I am done recording this with my incredible guest, which that's this little teaser, I'm going to go to my computer. I'm going to open up LinkedIn, and I'm going to do a post announcing that our book, Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. What a moment for us and my co-author, Kate Colbert, and contributions from the one, the only, the amazing Elvin Freites. And we're going to take over 100 of these interviews with college and university presidents, and we are going to distill these interviews down to about 5 big themes and write all about what's happening and what the future of higher education will look like. I will tell you right now, all I got to tell you is if you're looking for doom and gloom in this book, you're not going to find it, because in my opinion, the future of higher education is bright. You don't think a degree is worth it? That's not what our book will say. We'll say it's in question, but we're going to tell you that the presidents and those people in and around higher ed are truly innovative, passionate folks. And so after interviewing so many, it would be hard for me to write a book about the failures of higher ed. Yeah, we have work to do, but boy, oh boy, is the future bright. I've got another guest with me today. Of course, please go to Amazon and buy our book, but I've got a guest with me today and talk about bright futures. This is a gentleman creating bright futures in higher education in other parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, my guest today. His name is Fernando Valenzuela, and he is the founder of Global EdTech Impact Alliance. Fernando, what is happening?
Hello, Joe. I'm so glad to finally get to be part of this experience. I've listened to so many of your podcasts. Very, very excited to be here today.
Well, I think it's my fault. I think we talked and then I rescheduled and then I had this and that. And you're a busy guy too, just for the record. You're not easy to get a hold of, my friend. I don't know what you're doing out there, but you're doing big things. What are you working on right now? You're in Mexico City. You've got something big coming up.
Yeah, so I'm in Mexico City, but I do work in most of the Latin America region. So all the way from Chile, Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Uruguay, all over the place, and Central America as well. So I've been very, very busy throughout these past 2 years, and I'm doing things like building a brand new university, designing this report that I work with UNESCO, and now working with several universities in the transformation process. So it's been a really exciting time for me the past 2 years. So I just been very privileged to be in this position.
Incredible.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're building a new university. You did a report with UNESCO. How do you do this? First of all, let's talk about the university. When you say you're building a new university, tell us a little bit about what you mean and where it is and how it's going to be fashioned and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I've been tasked by a very, very wealthy Mexican entrepreneur who is willing to leave his legacy. He's from Mexico City. He's built an empire. He has about 110,000 employees. And he's built all the way from banking to retail to telco to mobility, a whole bunch of businesses that have been very, very successful. And he called me one day after listening to one of my interviews from the Aspen Institute. He called me and he says, I want to leave a legacy. I want to build something that would be the future of higher ed. So he kind of opened up the wallet and said, let's build something that is meaningful. And from then on, I started looking at the physical space, the technology, the academic path, the type of students, the way that you would, enroll, what does it mean to get a degree? What type of certificates you're going to get? So we've been working with over 100 minds all over the world to kind of define these. And it's, most of that turned out to be part of the report from UNESCO, but this is making sure that the report is not theoretical. It's something that is going to exist. We're going to open in the first quarter of 2023, and we have a beautiful building that is going to look nothing like you will resemble an existing university. We have a curricula, we have technology, we have a physical and digital space. So it's going to be amazing. I'm very, very excited. And we have so many minds working on this.
This sounds incredible. Fernando, how do you even build a university today? I mean, most people wouldn't even know where to start, right? I mean, yeah, you could go get a building, but when you're talking about getting students, you're talking about delivering the right kind of education at the right time, in the right way, in the right fashion, in a part of the world. I'm assuming this is in Mexico, right? There's a university in Mexico City.
Yeah, so we decided to place it in Mexico City, and we had a lot of discussions about what it will take for a student to go to a physical space after COVID, and what sort of physical space would that be. So I've been, I selected Rosanne Bosch, who's an architect from Denmark, has specialized in spaces that are mainly for human development and human potential. And we spend months kind of discovering what it means. What is it that the new building would require? What sort of location? What sort of a spaces? So we found a place to say, you're going to have some spaces that are fixed, some spaces that are going to be flux, and some spaces that are going to be totally flexible. But this idea of fixed, flux, flexible does not only apply to spaces, it applies to time, it applies to people, it applies to activities. So within that framework, we decided to build something that really would be inspirational and a place that you would not find in an office or a typical university, a place to connect, to grow, to meet people, and to develop projects.
Fernando, I'm going to need you to say fix, flux, flexible 3 times fast. No, I don't want you to do that.
No, don't do that. I
love it, though.
This is not my mother tongue, so I'm struggling already.
You're doing great. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the entrepreneur comes to you and says, I want to leave a legacy. I want to start a university. I believe in education. Here, he said he opened his wallet. So let's just assume that you had all of the funding that you need to start a university. How do you pick what you need technology-wise? You think about the number of technologies you could pick to run a university. I need this, and this will do this, and this will do that. It's even universities that are established right now don't know what technologies to really pick to run the university better. How do you zero in on the right technology stack to run a university?
Yeah, so as I said, we started working with about 100 of the minds that have developed something that is meaningful in education around the world. So I interviewed people from South Africa to Singapore to Europe, Asia, all over the world. So I started kind of picking all of these ideas, what it will take for someone that doesn't have the legacy. Most of the institutions today are struggling because they need to transform. But when you think about a white paper and say, okay, how do we start from something that doesn't exist to something that already has all the learning? So we started, inspiring by people like Michael Crow in Arizona State. What would you do if you had, if you didn't have a legacy? He has this model where you have the university in the center, and then you have different layers. You have a campus, but an extended campus with technology, and then you have a fully immersive digital space, and then you go all the way to the metaverse. So how do you start with that? So we created that vision. We decided to start small. We started with 1 or 2 programs. We decided to also work with people like Minerva, like Ben Nelson from Minerva University, understanding the active pedagogy, experiential learning. What would be Minerva? Minerva has been already for 10 years. Why if you build Minerva after COVID? So we decided to integrate with them. We work with a university in Guatemala that was also built from entrepreneurs from scratch. So we went all over the place. And I think all these pieces are coming together very nicely.
You know, you talk a lot about what's happening in the future of education, and you obviously the report with UNESCO came out. Talk to us about what the name of the report is, how we can get a hold of it, and what you found in that report.
So for the recent UNESCO meeting that happened in Barcelona in May, there was the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference, and they hired us to kind of develop these futures of higher education, focusing on 2050. And we started by also interviewing and working with people that had done amazing things in the past, the ones that began with the remote learning, online learning, transforming processes, transforming tools, and so on. And we decided to use the methodology of the Institutes for the Future to say there are some assets in education that, as any other asset, some are appreciating, some are depreciating. What are the assets that are depreciating? Like graduation, for example, like the same type of students with the same age, coming from the same type of environment, that is going to be depreciating. Physical spaces that look like a classroom, things like that. And some of the things that are not appreciating enough, like the certificates, like the diversity of students, like the ecosystem that a university connected to many different types of, not only students, but also initiatives, technologies, investment arms, startups, and so on. So we started with that methodology, and we came up with this idea of, the multiversity. Multiversity, multi-generational, for multi-segments, multiple paths, multiple certificates. We work with someone that had done an amazing exercise, like looking at the tube, the subway in London, to say, this is how a university should be in the future. You enter the university at the station that is closer to your home. You may take the red line and go for 3 stations, and then probably change to the green line, take another 3, get a certificate, and then you go off, and you probably come back later today or in a week or in a month. So we try to get all of these concepts, but really apply them to learning.
You know what I love about that subway example is pretty, it makes a lot of sense, right? You could change where you want to go. You could decide whether you want to take it today or tomorrow. And when you get to where you're going, hopefully you can achieve what you want to in that area, but eventually you got to get back on if you want to get back and get someplace better or go back home. This is the concept of the phygital, right? Phygital, am I saying it right? How to design for phygital learning experiences that take advantage face-to-face, augmented reality, online, metaverse. How do you implement this now? Because a lot of universities are talking about this, AI and VR and metaverse and so on. Implementation of these concepts seems very difficult unless you have the right minds or the right technology, the right dollars. How do you take that concept and ensure that it can be implemented in your new university and for the future of higher ed?
Yeah, I think this is always kind of a learning process. It's something that is going to be evolving. So what we decided to do was begin breaking some of the forces that currently exist in education. Like, we took a report from McKinsey and we said, this report is called Intentional Learning, and they wrote it maybe end of 2021. And this is a very simple, metaphor to say, for the rest of your life, you're gonna learn 3 objectives in 3 months, and you're going to be accompanied by 3 people. And we said, that looks like a good enough type of approach where you can enter the university for 3 months with 3 objectives. You select the 3 people that are available. One would probably give you emotional support. One will give you technological support. One will know more about the subject or whatever. So this idea of the subway provides with enough flexibility, but also has a structure, right? So you don't have to break every single mold. You have to, have some flexibility, but at the same time, a lot of choices. And I think with these ideas, the technology in the space also play a role. So that's why we created a physical space that would probably be a scenario for the metaverse. So you're going to represent the physical space and the metaverse in a very coherent and consistent way, because it's designed for learning. It's not like you design a metaverse space that it's in the moon and you cannot relate to the moon. You're going to relate to a space where you meet people, you collaborate, you get ideas, you build something, you test something out. So I think this set of principles allows us to think about this phygital experience with a little bit more, landing than just, building anything out of this world.
It's interesting to me, Fernando, that a wealthy individual in Mexico wants to start a university, because you look at, and this is a global question for you. Globally, you've been all over the world and you're well connected globally. In the United States, I don't know that anybody who has a ton of wealth right now at that level would start a university. In fact, it might be the other way. They might say, oh, no, we're not going to start universities. We're going to do certificate training programs. Or, I don't see somebody like Elon Musk starting a university. I just don't. Maybe he would, but how does the perception of higher education and I've asked this to global leaders, I always have a different answer than U.S. leaders. How does a global education look in terms of value? Do global leaders and those within the higher ed community still look at higher education as a value, rather than what happens in the United States right now publicly is that we're questioning that value of whether higher education has a value or not? What do you think globally?
Yeah, so the way I have seen, and maybe UNESCO forum in Barcelona was a good sign for all of this, is that universities do not lose its value because they are obsolete in terms of, a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree that used to give you, you used to be studying for, you wanted to be an accountant for the rest of your life. I did an exercise with my own LinkedIn contacts, and I found thousands of people that have, jobs that have no relationship with any, bachelor degree or even a master's degree. You have people that are designing their own spaces. So with this, I think the idea that you're gonna need an institution where you don't enroll into university, you probably subscribe to that university for the rest of your life. So within those concepts, I think most of the universities today in the world, have been developed by what they possess. What do they have? They have teachers, they have faculty, they have some programs, they have some Nobel Prizes, researchers. But I think the idea is not what you possess anymore, is the purpose. What do you believe in? How do you teach for people that need to know who, know why, and know what with the digital space, as opposed to, organizations or institutions that were designed to teach us, the know-how or the know what, if you will. So I think these are the principles of, bringing an institution that you have to call it a university, because that is kind of the scenario that we're used to. But this university, you would subscribe for many stages of your life. And through those stages, you're going to learn, you're going to be accompanied by, you're going to have information, you're going to have support. And I think this is what the new university should be thinking about.
Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Rather, through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza at Advanced 360 Education. It's interesting that you say that, because we do deal with that in higher ed all the time. I know I do, others that I have spoken with. It's not necessarily about what we have at the university within our bucket of, we have faculty, we have staff, we have programs. Does the student need what we have? And that's very difficult for us to figure out. I think there's some universities that are figuring it out, right? They're growing. There are some universities that are struggling to figure that out because they can't move from a we have to a does a student need kind of placement. But how do we reach the students of tomorrow is the question. We have the students of today. What does the student of tomorrow need, want, feel? And that's tough for us to define. Are there any universities out there that you've come into contact with, and you don't have to give me names of any if you don't want to, but who's doing it well? And where, do you see university within a specific example that goes, that's the way to do it. That's the way to reach your student of tomorrow?
Yeah, I have learned so much from the people that I've interviewed in both of these programs that, it's really putting together these pieces that exist already, but putting them together all at once in one single scenario. I think, I found a university in South Africa that is taking people from the most vulnerable positions that you can imagine and making them successful in the digital world at the most relevant companies that South Africa is hiring today. I had people that are, building this multi-generational speech. And I think this is one of the key elements to think, we're gonna be facing an era of work, if you will, where you're going to have managers that are 35 years old, and they're going to have 60% of their staff that is older than them. This idea of the corporate ladder and things like that. So who is designing for the multi-generational conversations? So I found pockets of these multi-generational conversations, this work of very diverse set of students that have different perspectives. So it's not really about technology. I think it's different ways of collaborating. I think is ways of rethinking terms that used to be fixed in our mind that are probably not fixed anymore, like time and space, things like that, age. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just breaking those molds so you can think about these type of universities in a different way, no?
Right, so it's the ins and outs, right? It's the in and out, right? If we take time away, we take space away, we take age away, we take the way we think in a linear fashion, we take that away. The student kind of sits at the center and they can pop in and out of when they need education. How come, why do you think universities haven't figured out a subscription model yet? What do you think? Because it's been talked about, but nobody's really figured it out.
Yeah, I think this idea of, having a fixed program with a closed room of people that subscribe to one single experience, they're all moving together. So what happens if you have in the same room students that are 24 with students that are 64? What happens on their space? It creates a lot of complexity. And this is why I think you need to begin kind of breaking these molds to say, okay, maybe the level of support is different from the students that are 24 that from the ones that are 54, but there is a benefit in that cohort, if you will. So I think this idea of building the future scenarios, building tools that allow you to test these type of products. There are some learnings that we took from League of Legends and the esports world.
Oh yeah.
From the personalization that is happening in fashion, from this silver economy that is trying to bring people from the older retirement age to work together and to connect digitally. And there are things that we don't know how what is going to happen. What is going to happen with the war in Russia and Ukraine? What level of crisis that is going to create? What level of impact the climate change is going to happen? So I think these problems have to bring us to a different set of discussions with different formats.
You're right. I mean, there is a lot to be learned from the video game community. I'll tell you that. They've got social media. They've got in-game social media. They've got external social media. They're always learning. Who I think it would have been Michael. No, it was Paul LeBlanc from Southern New Hampshire University, and he came on. We were talking about video games and how in a video game you could play something as a student or adult and lose. And the next day you try again and try again and you try again until you pass it. That doesn't mean that you get an F in grading. It means you get an A when you pass it, and you keep learning until you pass it. There's a lot to be said about eliminating grading or reimagining how we show achievement in higher education. Is that something you think about? You think about grading and assessment in your new university that you're working with?
No, one of the things is that we're building, assessment is basically part of your journey. It's not something that happens, is how do and we took a lot of the Minerva learnings on that part. I mean, you have to be active in your own learning, and that is the grade. You know, how you created that knowledge, and from these esports experiences in my workshop with these guys, I found that you have to design for confidence, for excitement, but also you have to design for adrenaline and competitive environments. And so how they do this,
amazing.
How do you
I love adrenaline.
Yeah, how do you build this type of experiences? I think it's all a challenge of design. And basically, you know, we have in our teams a few of these design experts that are building this type of relationships coming from the world and trying to apply them to education. And as much as we want to keep very rigorous approach to education, I think playing around with these concepts allows us to change some of these, you know, very, very, you know, fixed mindsets that we used to have.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the Global EdTech Impact Alliance. What do you do? You founded this organization. What do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, so this organization started, I was president of two of the largest publishers for Latin America for a number of years, but McGraw-Hill and Cengage Learning. And I started to see, you know, how, you know, these big companies and the education space was trying to get digital, and there were no entrepreneurs, there was no investment, very, you know, people that understood pedagogy did not understand technology, people that didn't understand technology did not understand pedagogy, neither one of them understood capital and impact and investment and return, and neither one of the three understood impact and closing the gaps. And
Yikes!
that's where it came to me and said, what I need to do is I need to bring pedagogy, technology, capital, and impact discussions all at once. We need to have these four forces every single time.
Say those four forces. You got to say those four forces one more time.
Attention.
Pedagogy, technology, capital, and impact.
Yeah, everybody listen up. Go.
So what I did is I started building network. I started to see who was innovating in the academic processes, then connecting them to the technologists, then bringing the venture capital, the investors and all of that, and then the social impact entrepreneurs. And what I did was just creating networks. And this is why it's called the Global Impact EdTech Alliance, because we have over 800 leaders. And this is totally focused at Latin America at this point, but we have about 800 members. And all of those 800 members, you probably have 150 that are entrepreneurs. You have 80 that are probably the venture capital. Then you have the pedagogists, the academics. Then you have the social impact entrepreneurs and investors. And we are just collaborating, sharing experiences, building network, building projects together. And that has grown amazingly well. And it started a little before the pandemic, but we basically creating this force, the EdLatam Alliance, these groups, the WhatsApp groups, the newsletters, the projects, and it created this force that allows us now to really integrate projects that are highly diverse, that are highly technological, but well-grounded in academics, and also bring the capital and social impact. We have so many gaps in Latin America. I don't know if you follow the news right now, but Latin America is in the major crisis, probably one of the worst in the world. We were bad before, if you look at, the PISA results and things like that, we were really, really bad. Today, Latin America has lost learning in an amazing pace. So I think this is a call for action. This is an emergency situation. This is where we need to bring government and, private enterprises. We need to bring technology, we need to bring capital. And that's the whole goal of this organization.
That's amazing. I'm sure you pulled on some of those resources as you start this university too. I mean, you must have a ton of intellectual capital built within those networks. Where are you in opening this university? At what point are you? You said 2023. Are we talking spring, fall? And at what, in your evolutionary stage of releasing this university to the world, at what point do you think you are?
So we're in the middle of building the physical space. The architects had just begun to do that. And that is probably what is going to take the longest, given that we have some crisis in terms of the logistics and bringing some of the materials home and so on.
Nobody can get any materials anywhere. That's the problem.
Exactly. So that is probably the major delay, but I think we are on track of building a couple of programs. We're on track on building the curriculum. I'm working, as I said, with the folks at Minerva. I'm working with amazing startups from technology perspective from the world, people like Griki, like Anoto from Israel. I'm building, most of these models also from the school in Guatemala that we went to visit. And we're ready to go. I think as soon as the building is ready, the technology and the programs are going to be set. We created a brand that I'm not able to share that brand, but we created, like things like social listening, for example. We've been listening to the market in all of the social media. So we have the students, different type of students that we've been listening through this technology that now allows you, and I think every single university should have social listening capabilities.
Oh, yeah.
Because the insights that we've gotten just from listening to TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and putting all together to see what are the expectations, what type of marketing you should do, how to attract them, what to offer. So I think it's very exciting, and it's been a learning process that is just amazing.
So you're also planning something in Mexico City, a conference of sorts, are you not? So it's coming up in September. Talk to us about it and how, if somebody is listening to this, how they might become a part of it.
Yeah, so I think one of I typically go around for many events throughout the year. I probably go to 10 or 12 events around the world, from south to south of Southwest, BET in London, ASU GSV in the US, EASTI also from the US, and NAFSA. So I go through all of the events. And Latin America lacks an event that is bringing education, investment, technology together. So I partner with Patrick and the Holon IQ team, and we decided to build a brand locally in Mexico called EDI. That brand is going to host the first Holon IQ Summit, International Summit in Mexico City, end of September, which is
wonderful.
Is part of the big Holon IQ summits happening around the world. But this is kind of the launch of this EDI summit that is going to happen every single year in Latin America, to bring these ideas, bring these people, and just create the community. And there are a lot of opportunities in Latin America, and people around the world are not seeing that. So the audience is also an international audience, so they can find out, what is happening around this area. A lot of investment happening in Edtech. So I think it's worth visiting this event.
Is there a website that people can go to check it out, Fernando, that you have handy?
Yeah, so right now you can go to the Holon IQ Summit webpage, and you will find that, and just get, tickets are open. We're publishing the agenda this week, and we're sending social media out.
Well, I would encourage everybody to check it out, and if you can attend, go. Fernando Valenzuela is doing incredible work for the Latin American community. Fernando, I have to ask you our last two questions that we end every episode with. Number one, what did we not say about your work that needs to be said, whether it's the UNESCO report, the university you're building, the Global EdTech Impact Alliance? Is there anything that you want to say at all about the work that you're doing? And then number two, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Yeah, so I think I would just like to bring out the amazing EdTech startups that are part of this community. It's been just a journey over the past 10 years since I started. I found in a survey that I did in 2012, I found only about 8 EdTech startups. Today we have about 200, and the level of maturity and the amazing things that they're doing is really worth highlighting. And I think Latin America is missing a little bit on the visibility from the world of how exciting these tech startups are. And some of the work also that also needs some visibility has to do with this idea of a model that we developed at the Global EdTech Startup Alliance that has to do with measuring returns for learning. So return on learning and return on investment were kind of the two things that everybody talked about. But now you need to integrate return on time, return on information, return on trust, and return on impact. And every single one of these 6 elements is how you deal with transformation in education. Sometimes you need to do something that has to improve the return on time, but maybe that creates a conflict in learning or a conflict in trust or a conflict in information. So every single one of these 6 forces is probably not aligned, and you need to always keep a balance between them. So I think this work is also something that is worth highlighting, because it has really been a guide for everything that we're doing, balancing act on these 6 different forces.
Let's say those 6 again. Time, learning, trust, information. What am I missing?
So return on learning, return on investment, return on impact, return on trust, return on time, and return on information.
Love it. That's incredible. And what do you see as the future of higher education, Fernando?
So I am totally biased because I'm trying to build the future of higher education. I think
good for you. Be biased here. Yes.
I think it really has to do with this idea that you're gonna find in the report, in the UNESCO report, and I'll probably have to give you the link. I don't have it handy right now, Joe, but
we'll put it in the show notes too.
In your notes. And also, I think it has to be this idea that if you are trying to build something that is the future of higher ed, the best way to do is not a business plan, is a prototype. So I think for me, the future of higher education has to do with building these big, hairy ideas, but doing it as a prototype, launching those as soon as you can, and then building. So I think this dynamic of creating something that makes sense from an idea perspective, we're always trying to get in education, we're always trying to get, who knows about this, who has done it, where does it work, who has the right, research that proves that this is possible. And I think we have so many things that have no research because they're simply brand new that we need to experiment more.
I love it. Well, I'll have you know, Fernando, that when I schedule these episodes, sometimes I put out a call for a co-host. I like to surprise my guests with co-hosts. I had 5 people that wanted to co-host you, but I said no to all 5 because I wanted you for myself, my friend, because I was like, I got too many questions for this guy. I got to get him. Thank you so much for coming on the EdUp Experience, Fernando. We appreciate you. Who is he? He is the one and only Fernando Valenzuela. He's founder of the Global EdTech Impact Alliance. Fernando, did you finally have a good EdUp experience today?
I just enjoy it. I'm so excited that I'm going to go and continue to do a lot of work because this is really worth doing.
I love it. This gentleman right here, I didn't even need a lot of sound effects.
Fire.
He's just absolute fire. I don't need to say anything. He just can take the mic and go with it. Fernando, absolute honor and pleasure to host you. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Effective marketing for educational institutions requires a dedicated partner that understands the complex, constantly evolving digital landscape in which colleges, universities, and career schools compete. The EdUp Experience podcast partner, Advanced 360 Education, is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness, whether the goal is driving enrollment, alumni engagement, or other educational marketing campaigns. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza, 310-704-5369, a360education.com.